Keon, thank you for joining me today. Thank you for just small part of today's I want to talk about the NFL, but not in the way that I'd love to, because I'm actually afraid for the NFL. I am worried that the NFL is going to stink this year, right? I think the NFL is going to stink. Now, why do I think that? There's a few things that go into a sport being great. One is the players. The players have to be great, and I don't think the NFL has a problem there. Obviously, the game has more talent than it's ever had. The coaching has to be great. Again, I don't think there's a problem there. I think the league has better coaching than it's ever had. But the officiating, that might be a problem, right? Officiating works best, unlike the players and unlike the coaches, when it's invisible. When players are great, when players are going out there and doing what they do, the league's great. When coaches are drawing up schemes, I mean, we saw Doug Peterson in the Super Bowl, right? Like, Doug Peterson was absolutely brilliant, and the success of the Philadelphia Eagles was in large part to how sharp he was at using and allocating his talent. Like, you can't question, you can't doubt and deny how good the coaching is in the league. Not only do you have guys like Belichick who have been coaching at a high level for a long time and quite frankly could just coach until he dies and not miss a beat, but you got newer guys like Peterson coming in that are pretty much making the league sustainable forever. But the officiating, look, I don't come down on officials that hard. They've got the hardest job of everybody. Their job is to regulate the game, is to make the game move at a pace that makes sense, is to keep the players under control, to keep the action under control, make the right calls, make the right no calls. I mean, that's a tough job. But the NFL is undergoing a lot of change. We're afraid of brain damage. We're afraid of CTE and what that's doing to players. So there are more rule changes that are trying to enforce player safety, which is a great thing. And I think that we're also at the point now where the officials that we have seen forever, you know, Ed Hockley and his massive biceps, I mean, they're going away. The turnover of NFL officials is higher than it has ever been. We have 8 new referees since 2014. We've turned over 70% of the league's officials in the last 7 years. There are only 17 refereeing spots. Can you believe that? There's only 17 of them. That is insane to me. I have never seen or known if anything's going to derail the league quite like this officiating turnover. So we've got the rule changes. We're enforcing new rules for player safety. It's fine. But again, we also have the new officials. This is a combination for disaster. Disaster. Do you remember the 2012 referee lockout? And the NFL thought, well, we can push through. We can have a season with officials that are, well, we called them scabs at the time, right? Guys who were not from the officials union, and the real officials were holding out. And these guys came in, and the original thought was, well, we won't miss them, right? Like what referees do, you just need referees in there. It doesn't matter. But it did matter, because it led to the most infamous officiating call of all time, the Hail Mary, where that Hail Mary was thrown up and it was ruled an interception. Seahawks, Packers. Was that Monday Night Football? Might have been Monday Night Football. And it is, to me, that has to be the biggest moment where the NFL realized, okay, officials matter. It's not just a bunch of guys out there wearing black and white stripes. If you don't have quality officials, you don't have a quality game. You don't have it. You just have key moments where calls are blown. A blown call changes the entire outlook of a football game. It's why we call it a game of inches. One blown call can determine the outcome of a football game. Most NFL games are determined by a score of 4 points or fewer. They're all close. You can't have bad officials out there. You can't have guys who don't know what they're doing out there. How? You'll ruin the game. And I'm not saying that the guys that are coming in are going to be bad officials. And I'm not saying that the guys that are coming in aren't going to learn. They will. But what I am saying is the guys that are coming in have a very small amount of time to digest a drastic set of rule changes. And we talked about one of the rules before, this helmet rule that they've had. Now, for ages, they have had a more targeting type rule. You cannot launch yourself like a missile head first at another player. You will be ejected. And this is heavily enforced in college football, I think, very well. But in the NFL, we have a rule where if you initiate helmet-to-helmet contact, that's a 15-yard penalty and possibly an ejection. And the rule is that vague. It's not more specific than that. So when linemen knock heads, because they always knock heads, is that breaking the rule? When a running back lowers himself to protect himself and he's behind his pads and his helmet hits another player's helmet, well, is that breaking the rule? It hasn't been defined enough. It simply hasn't been. And so you are having a rule that's a very drastic change from what we used to have with newer officials and younger officials than we've ever had, with a rule that's vague and can be interpreted a million different ways. How on earth is this going to work? When fall comes, NFL season starts mid-September, when it rolls around, I wouldn't be surprised if the game of football is hard to watch, at least for the first few weeks of the season, while these guys try and figure it out. Now, they're holding a clinic, and they're trying to explain to these new officials what the rules are going to be, and they feel like they have very obvious examples of what is and isn't in violation of the rule. But we had a catch rule where for years it seemed to be obvious what was and wasn't a catch, and yet for the longest time, we had some of the most bizarre plays, the Calvin Johnson play, the Des Bryant play, that play with the Steelers and the Patriots last year, where there's a guy who catches the ball, we all see him catch it, and yet somehow it's not ruled a catch. Officiating is a hard job, and the more vague you make these rules, you protect the officials in a way. There's some precedent for how they've got to rule this, but this is going to be tough. This is going to be tough. We've got guys who don't have as much experience, right? And it's not like officials were just leaving because they didn't want to referee anymore. Some guys retired because they'd been in the league 20 plus years, which is a long enough time to do any job, much less that one, where you're traveling around all the time. You know, you're away from your family. That's a tough job. So guys just retired. You do that for 20 years. You want to chill out with your family. And then some guys got promoted, right? There are analyst jobs. We have the analyst jobs that you can have in New York, where you're in New York, you watch the plays that happen all across the nation, and you can review it from there. So we end up with a lot of guys with less experience on the field for this real-time officiating. And I think that this is going to have a detrimental effect on the quality of football that we will be watching this upcoming fall. And that's not even to take into account the other radical rule change in which there's a new kickoff rule. We're going to see a kickoff formation that we have never seen. We've never seen it in the history of football. And we have guys that have entered the league. We have 8 new officials since 2014. There's no precedent for any of this. And I think that they're going to have to be the trailblazers, and we're going to not like the officials for a very long time. We're going to be upset with them. We're going to be annoyed by them. And I think that you should be patient with these guys, because what they're being asked to do is go out there and essentially moderate the evolution of the game. Moderate the evolution of the entire sport of football as we know it. And they don't even have experience. Not at this level. And we've seen it. We saw it in 2012. A lot of those officials that we brought in, they weren't just dudes off the street. I believe there were a couple of women officiating too, which is incredible to me, because those we had a couple of women substitute officiating before we had actual women officiating. Now we have some women officiating in the NFL, and thank goodness for that. But it was just weird to me that like the ground had to be broken with substitute officials. But my point is, these officials had experience. These weren't just men and women that we just grabbed off the street. Like, hey, you want to be a ref? How about you? Would you like to be a referee? Anybody want to be a referee? Raise your hand. No, they went and they got people who had college experience and years of high school experience. But let me tell you something about officiating in the NFL, man. That ain't the league. The NFL is a different animal. It's faster. Guys hit harder. It's meaner, right? If you think that the best players in college football are alpha males, what happens when those guys go to the NFL? I mean, those are the alpha males of the alpha males. And you ask a bunch of officials to come in and regulate all of that. Well, the less experience you have, the harder it's going to be to do that. And you could lose control of a game. The officials that they got in 2012 during the referee lockout were good quality officials. They just weren't used to the NFL game. And here we are with a bunch of newer officials. I'm not going to say they have zero NFL experience, because they have the newer guys, the newest 8 officials have at least 4 years of experience. They've been here since 2014. But 4 years of experience ain't 20. Like, what you know in 20 years of doing something laps what you know in 4. And these guys are good. But I don't think anybody's that good. I don't think anybody is that on top of it to where the game is evolving right in front of our eyes. There are radical rule changes being implemented. And I personally want the guy with more experience, right? Like, there are just jobs, most services that are provided, experience is what you want, right? Like you want someone who is newer when it comes to technology, because it's evolving at such a rapid pace. Your experience almost doesn't count for much, like in the changing landscape of that. But you know what? Flying a plane hasn't changed all that much. I'd like my pilot to be experienced. You know, cleaning teeth hasn't changed all that much. I want my dentist to have experience. Officiating football really hasn't changed all that much. I want my referees to have experience. And the league, I think, is playing with fire when you have as many people in officiating positions that don't necessarily have the experience, but have to oversee all of these radical rule changes. Guy that's been officiating 20 years, he's seen a bunch of rule changes already. He already knows how this stuff gets implemented. This is not the argument for no new officials. But man, turnover of 70% in the last 7 years, man, that's like fast food levels of turnover. Right? Like, there's a reason why jobs that you need to require tons of experience, you don't want those jobs to turn over a bunch. Right? Like, you don't want engineering jobs to turn over a ton. Not really. It's something that it takes more skill to do. Right? Like, someone's in sales, they have to develop relationships You don't want that to turn over a ton. You might have problems if that's turning over a bunch. And I look at the NFL and I go, yeah, I think there are problems here. You just have a recipe for disaster, in my opinion. I think that we're in a situation where we could potentially be watching some awful, awful NFL games. And if that happens, I don't know. I don't know where you go there. That seems incredible to me. You're listening to All New Nooga Radio, NoogaRadio.com. Here on 92.7 FM. So one thing that I think is interesting when you want to talk about experience, Dez Bryant is still a free agent. And Dez Bryant has played some big-time football. He is a big-time football player. Right? And he's been in some trouble early in his career, but he hasn't been in any trouble lately. And he's still a free agent. Dez Bryant has been a free agent for 3 months. And I thought that someone would leap at the opportunity to sign Dez Bryant. But Dez Bryant wants a bunch of money. He wants a bunch of money, and I don't think that anybody wants to sign Dez Bryant for the money that he wants. And Dez Bryant's not a versatile receiver. Dez Bryant is a pretty limited receiver in what he can do. Now, what he can do is pretty impressive, which is that he is a great deep ball receiver. And that's the reason why he's not a Dallas Cowboy anymore. Dez Bryant was highly productive when Tony Romo was his quarterback. He hasn't been anywhere near as productive with Dak Prescott. Dak's not a deep ball quarterback. Not only does Dak not really have the strongest arm, but he's strong enough to throw a deep ball, but his deep ball accuracy is not really there. And Dak's personal preference when you watch him play is to throw shorter to intermediate passes. And Dez Bryant was never able to adapt to that. Dez was not able to become the kind of receiver you could throw him in the slot. You can put him out as he could run a 9. I mean, there's not a whole lot you can do with Dez Bryant outside of him rolling with a bunch of depth. Not a ton. So I think that Dez Bryant's in an interesting situation. He will be picked up by somebody by week 1. Training camp starts here in a little bit. Once the training camp starts, guys are going to get dinged. You're going to have injuries happen, and someone is going to be desperate enough to sign Dez Bryant. I just don't think it should take desperation. You know what Dez Bryant does. He's obviously a one-trick pony, but can I give credit to the one-trick pony? A one-trick pony is great if it's a really great one trick. If the one thing you can do is brilliant, then that's fine. Right? Like, I mean, look how successful Will Ferrell has been. Will Ferrell has the same kinds of jokes in every movie. In every movie. He's still hilarious, right? Like Will Ferrell in Anchorman is giving you the same kind of humor. He's not the same character, but he's giving you the same kind of humor that he's giving you in Talladega Nights. They're the same jokes, but they're funny jokes. Right? Like if you have a guy who can do one thing great, then that's, to me, it's worth it. It is 100% worth it to go out there and get that guy. And I don't know, the Packers could use a guy that could run a deep route. They've got possibly the best deep ball passer in the game in Aaron Rodgers, right? Like when Aaron Rodgers is completely healthy, what about Aaron Rodgers? Aaron Rodgers is better than Tony Romo. Tony Romo, correct me if I'm wrong, great downfield passer, clutch in the fourth quarters of games. I know that people don't think Tony Romo's clutch, but look at the numbers, okay? I mean, he won a lot of games when there was not a whole lot of time left in the fourth quarter, okay? The stats are there. I don't care what you feel. So Aaron Rodgers does that, but better. Aaron Rodgers, more accurate passer. Aaron Rodgers, escapability. Aaron Rodgers, clutch performer. But minus the back-breaking interceptions in the games that they do lose. Like when Packers lose late, it's not ever Aaron Rodgers' fault, and you know this. And you absolutely know this. Why aren't the Packers doing this? Because, I mean, the Packers have largely failed to build around Aaron Rodgers. He is, to me right now, in the league, the best quarterback. And Aaron Rodgers, by the way, is the best quarterback I've ever seen in my life. He just does things as a quarterback I've never seen anyone do on a weekly basis. There's never been a quarterback like Aaron Rodgers. And if you're the Packers, how is it possible that this is not a no-brainer? Just go out and pay Des Bryant what he wants. I mean, I know maybe you just wait till he's desperate, but that seems silly. You're listening to All New News Radio, newsradio.com here on 92.7 FM. Watch with Keon.
Traffic, news, and information. Nuga Radio. Digital FM 95.3 HD4 and 92.7 FM. 3, 2, 1. Chattanooga Radio. Digital FM 95.3 HD4. 92.7 FM's news now.
Shaw Industries fined over $20,000 by OSHA after a worker death. There were reportedly 2 safety violations at the popular carpet maker that led to the death of one of its workers. Jesus Pimentel was killed in 2017 when he was caught between a piece of heavy machinery and a metal beam. New details in the home invasion shooting in which Autumn Gibson was arrested. Investigators say Gibson shot and wounded Miguel Doris on Central Drive on June the 7th. Police say Gibson was part of a break-in that led to Doris' injury. She was charged with attempted criminal homicide and especially aggravated robbery. A fight broke out at the Bradley County Jail and an inmate was injured. According to the TFP, the altercation was between 2 inmates. The injured inmate did require medical attention. Val St. John for Nuga Radio News Talk 92.7. Action News now.
Chattanooga Morning News with Russ and Val. Weekdays from 6 to 9 a.m. on Nuga Radio 92.7 FM.
Chattanooga weather. Becoming fair out there through your nighttime hours. Warm, muggy again. Overnight lows 70 to 73. Now for Thursday, some morning sunshine giving way to another hot, humid afternoon. Highs near 92. Only spotty afternoon showers and storms with more of that expected for Friday and Saturday. Hamilton Physician Group. Calhoun Primary Care is now in a new location, 160 Curtis Parkway. Personalized medical care for you and your family. That's Hamilton Physician Group, Calhoun Primary Care. And I'm Sorsey, 12 She's Meteorologist Pastor for Nuga Radio 92.7.
I got my business up and running and it's already expanding. I got lucky. Lucky because I found Signal Voice and Data. Signal Voice and Data can incorporate all of my business information sharing and communications seamlessly, keep my costs down, and let me work more productively with endless connectivity no matter where I might be. That's called working smart, not hard. Go to signalvoicetn.com and bring the future of communication to your business today. signalvoicetn.com.
Hey, dude, check this out. Have you ever seen one so big?
Whoa, look at the size of that.
Look at this little itty-bitty one.
Wow, that's really small.
They have them big, small, and everything in between. You'll always find the biggest variety of knives at the knife shop at Frost Cutlery in Ottawa. We're talking about over 40 brands of knives, including Benchmade, WR Case & Sons, Booker, and all the Frost Cutlery brands. Now, Sam, you've been to the cutlery shop. Is it amazing?
Spectacular. The knife shop at Frost Cutlery in Ottawa. They have knives, swords, kitchen knives, ammo, and reloading supplies, plus survival gear.
It's the knife shop at Frost Cutlery. They're open 7 days a week. Hey, girls, you're going to love this. We're going to the knife shop. Hey, let's not tell them they have ammo and loading supplies. The knife shop at Frost Cutlery opens 7 days a week. You'll always find the biggest variety of knives. You're going to love the knife shop at Frost Cutlery in Ottawa. The knife shop.
And tell them David Tulis sent you.
Do you hear that? That, my friend, is not what you're thinking. That is the new 2018 Indian Chieftain Dark Horse. Yeah, Indian. Indian motorcycle is more than a bike. It's an experience, an American icon. And Indian Motorcycle of Chattanooga is the only place you'll find their new 2018 line. Are you ready to ride? Join the club. Go to Indian Motorcycle of Chattanooga. Just look for the sign, 153 and Atlacola. Indian Motorcycle, the true American original.
You want more business. You want to increase your bottom line. You want to spend less on advertising, imaging your business, and general expenses. You need Trade Bank. When you join Trade Bank, you'll get the benefit of free advertising in our monthly magazine, tradebank.com, emails, and mailouts. Join Trade Bank now and receive your Trade Bank debit card with trade credits to spend any way you want. Trade Bank of Chattanooga. Call now for a free consultation. 877-2202. That's 877-2202. Trade Bank of Chattanooga.
Chattanooga Paint and Decorating would like to remind you it's so hot out there. And guess what? Your deck is taking a beating. It's probably starting to show wear. If you're hosting friends for the 4th, get your deck entertainment ready with a fresh coat of stain and protect it from heat, sun, and rain with a quality sealant. If you want to get to work, Chattanooga Paint and Decorating want to help you. For exterior paint, stains, sealants, and supplies, stop by Chattanooga Paint and Decorating today on Hicks and Pike across from Valvoline or online at ChattanoogaPaint.com.
Nuga Radio. Are you brain dead? Still voting for pathetic liberals? Take 3 hours of Sean Hannity from 3 to 6.
Nuga Radio.
Then call us in the morning between 9 and 11.
92.7
Nuga Radio.
Joining me today, making me just a small part of your day. You know that I appreciate you. So I haven't played Madden in forever. Like, it's been a very, very long time since I've played a game of Madden, in large part because I don't have time to play video games like I used to. And when I do, I like to play games that have a story, character building, stuff like that. Maybe it could just be because I'm a dork. I get that, but that's where I prefer to be. That's the lane that I live in. So Madden doesn't do it for me anymore. If I want football, I'll just watch it. It's okay. Right? And they haven't made a Madden for the Nintendo Switch, so I'm not even remotely tempted to play it, and I'm not going to drop $300 on another console to go play a game of Madden. But I do think that there is an interesting obsession with players' stats in the game of Madden, because players are very obsessed with the idea that they are going to play as themselves and that their Madden models should imitate what they are and what they actually are like. And nothing, literally nothing, is more hilarious to me than that concept. But I'm obsessed with one stat in particular, right? Which is the catching stat of a couple of quarterbacks, which seems odd until you realize which two quarterbacks I'm talking about. One Thomas Brady of the New England Patriots, and one Nicholas Foles of the Philadelphia Eagles. And the reason why the catch stats of these two quarterbacks are interesting is because Tom Brady has higher catching, according to Madden, than Nick Foles, even though, in the Super Bowl, Tom Brady was thrown a pass and Nick Foles was thrown a pass. Tom Brady dropped his pass, and it was an easy one too. I mean, it right in the bread basket. And Brady couldn't hang on to his pass. And Nick Foles didn't drop his pass, and Nick Foles' pass was a touchdown. So how do you explain that? What's the game of Madden doing? If they can't get that correctly, the game's wrong. The game's wrong. Why should anyone go out and pick up a game of Madden? And it's not like Tom Brady's catching stat is slightly higher. It's decently higher. Brady's rated at 39 with Foles rated at 32. And I don't know how that happened. How does that happen? How does one guy catch a pass in the Super Bowl, one guy drop an easy catch, and wind up with the higher numbers? Someone explain that to me. What are they looking for when they rate things in Madden? Does anybody know? What's the Madden secret sauce? Because I feel like they make these numbers up. Like, you look at Antonio Brown, and he's really fast. So what do you give him? Is there anyone who's ever been rated a 99? Does it make sense to rate someone a 99? Because what if someone comes along that's faster than them? It's silly. Buying sports video games are silly anyway, though. Because they release it every year. You buy the same game every year. And nobody seems to complain or have a problem with this, even though we live in an age where you can just update stuff online. Like when you buy a copy of Adobe Photoshop, you don't have to buy Photoshop every time they update it. You can just download it. And if you want to charge people for the download and for the update and all that, well, then that's a different conversation. But people go out and buy a new actual copy of Madden every single year that they make it. And I have never understood that, nor will I ever understand that. Makes zero sense. And inside the game itself, if Tom Brady has higher catching numbers than Nick Foles, then that makes about as little sense as I actually thought that game was. You're listening to All New Nooga Radio, NoogRadio.com here on 92.7 FM. Antonio Brown is 30. How incredible is that? Antonio Brown's 30. I was talking about Des Bryant earlier. Who's older, Des Bryant or Antonio Brown? It's Antonio Brown. Why does it feel like Des Bryant is a million years older? Des Bryant is 27. He's 27. Why does it feel like Des Bryant is a million years older than Antonio Brown is? Like, it's the way that Antonio Brown plays. And that's the reason why Antonio Brown right now, and I don't think that this is particularly up for debate, is the best wide receiver in the game. I want to say Julio. Julio is my guy. But Julio is playing in an offensive system in Atlanta where they don't use him well. He's not used properly. He's just not. And I think that keeps him, and that's holding him back. Steve Sarkisian, offensive coordinator for the Atlanta Falcons, holding him back from being the best wide receiver in the game. Antonio Brown is it. He's the gold standard, and he is lethal in a variety of ways. In the way that I said that Des Bryant before is a one-trick pony, Antonio Brown is lethal. You can line Antonio Brown up as a back, which the Steelers have done occasionally. It's not something they do all the time, but when they've done it, he's been successful. In the slot, he's been successful. He's been successful. Line him up anywhere. X, Y, Z, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. He can do it all. And I think that that's one thing that leads to the success of Antonio Brown. Plus, when you look at Antonio Brown's numbers compared to Jerry Rice's numbers coming up before the age of 30, Antonio Brown's been in 115 games before 30. Jerry Rice was in 114. Antonio Brown has 733 receptions to Jerry Rice's 550. He's got 9,910 yards to Jerry Rice's 9,300. The only way in which Jerry Rice blows Antonio Brown away is touchdown receptions, in which Jerry Rice had 95 and Antonio Brown's got 59. So it's not even close, right? Like Jerry Rice has 30 more touchdowns on Antonio Brown. And that's why Jerry Rice is the greatest of all time. Jerry Rice could get you into the end zone, make catches at the goal line that he's not supposed to make, right? Like, it's not like Steve Young and Joe Montana threw him a lot of terrible passes. But there were times when a defender would make a play on the ball. Jerry Rice had no right to that ball, and he would still come down with it. Right? This is not an argument for Jerry Rice not being the GOAT anymore. He's still the GOAT. And Antonio Brown may have bigger numbers as far as receptions and receiving yards go before 30 than Jerry Rice. But the difference between Jerry Rice and Antonio Brown, at least at this point in their careers, Jerry Rice did it for longer. And you can't dethrone Jerry Rice as the GOAT until you prove you can do it for longer than that guy did it. Right? Like, that to me is what is incredible. But the fact that Antonio Brown has just statistically has even inserted himself into the conversation tells you how absolutely ridiculous that guy is. And he doesn't look like he's losing a step or is going to slow down. Obviously, you do wonder about guys on certain sides of 30 years old, right? Like, you just can't, there's no two ways about it. There's no getting around it. But the fact that he's been productive up to this point is kind of incredible. It's kind of incredible. And this is why I like watching the Steelers, even though I hate the Steelers. I really just like watching Antonio Brown and Le'Veon Bell. Like, the Steelers have some of the most talented guys in the entire league. You're listening to all new Nuga Radio and NugaRadio.com here on 92.7 FM. Kevin Durant is back into more internet stuff again. This time, no burner account. So how about that? You got to give him his props for that. Mr. Kevin Durant, no burner account, which I feel like is an improvement. And, you have to give people their credit in life as they develop and grow. You have to. And so applause to Kevin Durant for this time keeping his name on his insults. But the issue with Kevin Durant is that he has gotten into a petty argument with a 17-year-old boy. 17-year-old kid on Instagram made a post that had the faces of Kevin Durant, Kawhi Leonard, and Anthony Davis, labeled 3 elite two-way players, but don't elevate a team quite like LeBron and Steph do to their playmaking leadership deficiencies. Now, apart from the fact that this child has made a fundamentally stupid observation, but he's 17. That's what he's supposed to do, right? Apparently, this child did not watch Kevin Durant's MVP season in which Russell Westbrook was injured, and it was Kevin Durant surrounded by 4 soup cans, and they still made the playoffs, and that's why he was the MVP of the league that year. Apparently, this kid didn't even watch that. Doesn't know. Right? He made a stupid observation. He's a 17-year-old kid. Apparently, this kid doesn't seem to realize how much worse the Spurs were without Kawhi Leonard than with him. Right? Like, it's a bad thing. It's like the picture that he used has Kevin Durant, Kawhi Leonard, and Anthony Davis. And if you take Anthony Davis off of the Pelicans, you don't even have an NBA basketball team. I don't know what you have, but it shouldn't be allowed to be in the NBA. That much I do know. It shouldn't be allowed to wear an NBA jersey. It shouldn't be allowed to represent a city. It shouldn't be able to do anything. It should not be allowed to exist if you take Anthony Davis off of it. So this kid made a controversial post, and the kid's clearly doing well for himself on Instagram. Well, he's got like 50,000 followers. So he's clearly doing something right. He's just being wrong. And Kevin Durant shows up and gets into an argument with a 17-year-old. And I don't know why people are so mad at Kevin Durant for doing this. Like, I get why you shouldn't just argue with 17-year-old kids willy-nilly. I understand logically why that is something that you would not do and why that is in behavior you should not engage in. And Kevin Durant, you make way too much money and you are way too talented a ball player to go out here fighting kids. Okay. I think that much is obvious. But I think that Kevin Durant is a petty person. Like all basketball players are. Like, if you're great at what you do, right? You are going to be petty if you also do that thing competitively. You just are. Right? I'm petty if you say something about this radio show when I know how hard I work to make it good, to make it fun, to make it interesting. I am going to be mad at you. Okay, I do tons of research to make this thing interesting, and you don't have to like it. But if you just come out and bash me, and what you're saying isn't true, makes no sense, I'm going to take issue with it. I'm not going to come out and say anything, but I'm not as petty as a professional athlete. Right? Like, Steve Smith is my favorite guy because Steve Smith, when he was with the Panthers and the 1 year he was with the Ravens, Steve Smith has newspaper clippings of every article ever written about him where people said he was too short to play the game, where he was too small to be a wide receiver. He has clippings of all of it. Are you telling me that if Steve Smith grows up in the social media age, he's not out here fighting kids too? I don't know, but I wouldn't be shocked either. Right? Kobe Bryant is incredibly petty. Right? We praise Kobe Bryant. Right? I like to say that there's a group of people, they worship at the altar of Kobe Bryant. I mean, like Kobe can do no wrong. There is a section of people for which Kobe Bryant is the greatest basketball player that ever played after Michael Jordan and can do nothing wrong. I highly disagree. But these people ignore the fact that Kobe Bryant, the pettiest human. Are you telling me that if Kobe Bryant grows up in an age of social media, he's not out here doing this? This is how it manifests itself. When you take that same personality and give it technology, it's going to behave this way. Kevin Durant has the same personality, but we praise it with Kobe because Kobe never got the chance to get into a petty argument with a child. Right? Like we give it to Steve Smith because Steve Smith never had the opportunity to get into a petty argument with a kid. Kevin Durant has the opportunity and grew up in the generation where those opportunities presented themselves often. Like Kevin Durant might be the pettiest guy in the NBA. Russell Westbrook is the angriest. Like if you take a picture of Russell Westbrook while the Thunder are losing, he's going to snatch the phone out of your hand. Right? He's certainly the angriest. But Kevin's the pettiest. And great athletes are generally petty. Just as a personality trait. They remember everything that was said about them. They take it, they internalize it, and they use it as fuel. They take everything personally. Everything. There's no getting around that as a personality trait. And so people, are coming out and they're questioning Kevin Durant, who has every right to go out there and come after this kid. But from a public relations standpoint, it does look bad. It does look bad. Right? I don't know if you remember when the comedian Cat Williams got into that fight with that 17-year-old. And everyone just came after him because they were like, dude, he was 17. And then not only that, but on top of that, he lost the fight, which the kid posted the screenshots of Kevin Durant arguing with him in the direct messages, in the DMs there. And yeah, it does look bad. It does look bad. I think Kevin Durant may have lost the argument too. Because Durant was saying something to the effect of, well, your opinions don't matter. And the kid's like, well, my opinions matter enough for you to read them and comment on them. And you're a basketball player making millions. I'm just some kid on Instagram. It does look bad. From a public relations aspect, I would highly advise Kevin Durant to not do any of the things that he's doing. But from a respect standpoint, game recognized game. I am a petty person too. And I can't guarantee with a high degree of certainty that I wouldn't get into a petty argument with a 17-year-old boy. I don't know. And you know what? You don't know either. Take your personality and give it technology that it never knew it had access to. You know what I mean? Like this is where we're at. We don't know what Charles Barkley would have done had he grown up in the age of Twitter. Charles doesn't like technology because Charles didn't grow up with technology, right? Charles doesn't know how to DVR things. And how do I know this? Because Charles was on NBA TV like a month ago talking about the beginnings of NBA free agency, and he was watching TV at the same time. If he had a DVR, had he learned how to use a DVR, he could have paused his show and answered the phone and talked to the guys on NBA TV, hung up the phone, and hit play on his show. But Charles does not know how to do this. But if you take Charles's personality, as we know Charles Barkley to be highly petty, incredibly volatile, especially during his playing days, and you gave that personality social media, Would that not be fun? Wouldn't that be great? We're living in a marvelous time. And I'm saying don't ruin it by pointing out to Kevin Durant how absolutely insane he's being. Don't ruin it. I need more petty arguments with high schoolers. That's what I want. That's what I like when I go on the internet. When an athlete takes offense with you and argues with you, right? I think we should be more concerned with the fact that that's what our president likes to do, that our president is equally as petty and will fight people and will block people on Twitter. Like, dude, don't you have a country to run? Isn't there some meeting? Isn't there some briefing you should be at? Come on. If it's okay for the president of the United States, if it's fine for POTUS to be petty on social media, arguing with people who should be far beneath him, then it's got to be fine for Kevin Durant to argue with a 17-year-old. That's all I'm saying. That is the point that I am trying to drive home here. That we've got to be able to hold up athletes to, at the very least, the same standard to which we hold up the president of the United States. You're listening to All New Nuga Radio, NugaRadio.com here on 92.7 FM. Clutch with Keon Rose. Thank you for joining me today, making me just a small part of your day. You know that I appreciate you. Remember, it's not how you start, it's how you finish. Stay clutch, and I'll see you
Hi, David Toulis. I made the move, and I hope you will too. David Toulis, Nuga Radio, 1 o'clock every weekday afternoon, 1 till 3 here at Nuga Radio.
92.7. 3, 2, 1.
Chatter, Nuga Radio, Digital FM 95.3 HD4, 92.7 FM's news now.
Jury selection began for a Labor Day double murder case. Chattanooga police say Stephen Mobley shot and killed Jasmine Hines and Rashad Taylor after a Labor Day party that went late into the night. One person was injured in that same shooting, but not killed. Mobley posted a video on Facebook vehemently stating his innocence, but prosecutors, they're not buying it. He's charged with 2 counts, first-degree murder. A fight broke out at the Bradley County Jail, and 1 inmate was injured, according to the TFP. Brian Graves said that the injured inmate required medical attention and may have been airlifted to Erlanger. Unsanctioned counterfeit currency spotted in Dalton. The U.S. Secret Service advised the police department on Tuesday morning that several convincing counterfeit bills have